And a good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome in Chasing Big Joe. 1025, 1063 The Game. He's Big Joe Doohan. I'm Chase McCabe. Nick Frazier, Dr. Crane on the ones and twos. Hoping you're having a great start to your day so far. JoJo, what's up?
We're on at 8:59. It just turned 9 o'clock. Good morning, buddy. Good morning. We celebrated a Nashville Predators win last night.
Well, we did. So happy for that. Colton Sisson's going to join us here in just a few minutes. And we'll get his thoughts on the Predators' win last night, 3-0 over the Chicago Blackhawks in Smashville.
I would love to have like a hidden camera on Sissons when the Preds PR staff goes to him last night and says, hey, tomorrow morning, got to go on the radio with these two guys. You know, you've done it before, and just to see his reaction, like, ugh.
I think he would be like, oh, Chasing Big Joe, I love those guys.
I think he's like, oh, man. Calls his agent like, is this part of my contract? I'm not quite sure. He's like, I know that one guy asked really good questions. Another guy is really stupid, but I'll play along with it.
Yeah, so we'll talk to Colton here in just a few minutes and get his thoughts on the win and back at it at home on Thursday. And I probably should look up Calgary. Yeah,
Calgary.
90s
that's
night.
a big game.
90s night at Bridgestone Arena.
On
so
Thursday.
Should be fun.
So we had Colton come on in a few moments, but can we throw a question of the day out?
Yeah,
real
let's
quick?
go ahead and throw that out there because we'll get to that after Colton.
So 20 years ago today, and I tweeted it out, on Facebook, whatever. Gary Anderson kicked the field goal in overtime when the Titans beat the Ravens in that improbable victory at Baltimore. Remember, it was the last playoff win on the road until they beat the Chiefs in the 2017 season. So for like 14 seasons, we all talked about, the Titans can't win a game on the road. But that was 20 years ago today. So the question was coming up like, what's your favorite positive today? What's your favorite Titan moment, not the Music City Miracle? And I remember that game vividly. Remember, that's when Eddie and Ray squared off. I know Derek Mason in the game and all that. And the Ravens that was a great football team, and the Titans really had no chance to win. Remember, Fisher calls Gary Anderson up. He's in some remote fishing village in Canada.
Yeah. Because then he got hurt, right?
Right. So he comes to Nashville, kicks a field. I don't even know how long it was the team, maybe 2 days, and kicks a 46-yard field goal. And the tweet's like, this 70-year-old man kicks a 46, and he had the single bar face. I mean, it was one of the greatest moments ever, one of the best pictures ever when he's running off the field kicking that field goal. So,
isn't Derek hugging him?
Not in the picture I saw, but I'm sure
there's one that was hanging in Nissan Stadium in the press box that had Derek hugging him. And the reason I remember this is because we used to give Derek crap about hating kickers.
Yeah.
And I saw that picture, and I took a picture of the picture, and I was like, proof that Derek loves kickers.
And he loves old men. I mean, Derek cares about old men and make sure they're okay. And it was just, I mean, he was so old at the time. And
Floyd made a joke one time, goes, yeah, Gary was older than I was.
But Fisher went and found him, and he was in some remote fishing village in Canada. Yeah. And they brought him in, and he did that. So it's an amazing moment. And I'm not the biggest Titans fan ever. I support them. I hope they win. It's good for the hometown. But that was just a critical and crucial moment in their history. So I want to hear from somebody else. There's other moments that I've forgotten about that it'd be great. So hit us on the text line, 615-737-1025.
That's a good one. Mine because it was just such a big moment during those days and playing Indianapolis, but I was also with my dad, and it's just one of those, with my dad moments that I'll always remember when Baronis hit the 60-yarder.
Yeah.
I was at that game.
Against the Colts. That's the year the Colts won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but and it was like a magnificent coaching job by Fisher because he got Dungy to blow his timeouts.
Right.
Because remember, they showed punt, they came out for the field goal, and then Dungy calls a timeout, or Fisher calls. I can't remember exactly the sequence, but then they go out for punt, and he makes him blow another timeout, and then he puts Baronis back out there and he kicks it. So
a 60-yarder, yeah. And then it was funny if 2 years later he doesn't let Baronis try like a 58-yard field goal versus the Texans in that 13-3 season in 2008. But you got one chance to win it, man. Go for it right there. That's a good moment. Yeah.
So what's yours? The Anderson one? Or?
I just think it was so improbable. I mean, covering that football team at the time, they go on the road to Baltimore, a tough environment, Saturday night, that tough Ravens team. The Titans are all banged up, and they beat him. And the kicker that comes in that they just signed to come, Gary Anderson comes in and wins the game. I mean, it was just an amazing moment. for that football team, for that franchise. I mean, there are big moments about history. We'll talk to John McClain at 9:30. There's a moment in 1989 where the Steelers beat the Oilers on New Year's Eve on an improbable field goal. So things like that go on, you remember, with these football teams.
615-737-1025. You can weigh in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Colton Sissons going to join us in just a few minutes. As I mentioned, the Predators get their 3-0 win at Bridgestone Arena, the second shutout of the season for UC Saros. Obviously, opening night was the first, and then they win 3-0 against Chicago. I thought it was interesting. Andrew Brunette said after the game that it was good, it was bad, it was ugly, and it was great all at the same time. That was pretty much how he described the game after his team won. And, the score will tell you, well, the Predators dominated. I wouldn't say it was that.
Say that again. He described the game as how?
It was good, bad, ugly, and beautiful.
That described both my marriages. So thank you, Andrew Burnett, for that. I appreciate that.
And so I thought that was a pretty good way to sum it up. But, I mean, UC Saros continues to do what he needs to do to help his team win. And I know that they all appreciate him. Colton Sissons joins us now here on the Chasing Big Joe Show. Colton, good morning. How are you?
Doing well, guys. Thanks. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic. I was just setting this up. 3-0 the win last night, the second shutout of the year for UC Saros. And once again, he does whatever he does to help you guys win.
Yeah, Juice was sharp when we needed him last night. Obviously, there's some lulls there when he wasn't seeing too much action. And then, there was some power play opportunities where there were some attempts and looks, and he was dialed in.
I know you're focused on what you're doing, but when you see him, make some of the saves that he makes and do the things that he does, obviously you play with Pecorine and saw a lot of the same stuff. Do you find yourself just still being amazed at some of the things he can do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he does it so often that it maybe loses a little bit of that specialness just because we see it pretty frequently, but certainly lifts the bench up and gets the boys pretty fired up. So he does a good job of that. We love watching him do his thing in there.
Colton, you guys play so many games back-to-back, and you have a game on Tuesday, practice today, game Thursday. How much time do you guys get in for strength training? I'm always curious about that because I know you guys are always on the ice. How much time do you guys do strength training?
Not much, to be honest. We do a couple exercises on practice days, and occasionally post game we'll get some work in. Depending on what our schedule is looking like. But as far as strength or kind of lifting stuff, it's nothing too extreme throughout the season. We just don't have the time to recover.
How fast could you run a mile?
I have no idea. I don't like running.
I'm always curious about the shape, because, all the four major sports, you guys train so differently, but I'm always curious how a great athlete, conditioned athlete like yourself, could run a mile if you had to run a mile. I mean, you could run a mile, right?
I can certainly run a mile, yeah. I just can't say I've timed myself recently.
Colton Sissons is with us from the Nashville Predators. You're having a great start to a season personally. I mean, 11 goals already through 38 games. I know you don't, focus on personal accolades like that, but it has to feel good to know that, you're contributing and scoring when you contribute in so many other ways as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly something that I do pride myself in on producing for us on the offensive front, along with all the other things that I've kind of honed in over the years, but having a lot of opportunity and being on that top unit, that's the power play unit that's performing quite well has certainly helped some of those totals be on pace for hopefully one of my best years ever.
Why do you think that Gus has fit so well with you guys? Because I feel like every night now, I mean, I'm hearing his name called.
Yeah. He was, really just a pleasant surprise how good of a player and how smart he is and how crafty he is. It's been really impressive to watch. He's fit right in with Factor and Phil on that top line. Those guys have some nice chemistry together, and he's been tremendous on our power play. We basically just give him the puck and we break in more often than not. So he's been great.
Talked to Colton Sissons this morning. The Preds with the big win last night. Great road trip, Colton, you guys were on. What was that like after the game Saturday night in Washington, getting one from the Caps? Because we're listening to this back here and we're screaming and yelling. I can only imagine what it was like after the game for you guys.
Yeah, it was a big win. Obviously a little stressful down the stretch there with having a goal disallowed late, and then a big Paskey getting in there for the shootout and stopping a couple of his Russian comrades, which was pretty awesome to see. So I think everyone was started up for Paskey more than anything.
I know you've been in the league now for quite a while, but when you see like an Ovechkin do a shootout or one of the big names, do you take a moment to watch and just see? I know you're playing a game, but does a small part of you, just a little bit of a fan, to get to watch a guy like that? And of course, you got great teammates as well, do their thing in a shootout like that. Do you look at that in kind of a different way?
Maybe a very, very small part. Certainly just hoping that we get a big save more than anything, of course. But, there's definitely some guys that have that presence out there that, can catch yourself a little bit watching them from that point of view, I guess.
Talking with Colton Sissons, Predators forward. So Calgary comes to town tomorrow night. It's 90s night at Bridgestone Arena, which is going to be fun, obviously celebrating 25 years of the Nashville Predators. You're a 90s kid. Looking forward to that?
Yeah, I guess so. It'd be good. I think we have several kids in the 2000s born now, so there's only a few of us left.
Yeah, Colton, I don't know how to tell you this, but at 30 years old, you're considered old on the team. So, not trying to make you feel bad. I'm right there with you, but, that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. Thank you.
Well, good luck tomorrow night against Calgary. We appreciate you doing this this morning. We'll talk to you down the road.
Okay, guys. Have a good one.
You too. Colton Sissons joining us here on the program.
Colton
I got him beat by 6 years. 30's still pretty young. So
I didn't get a chance to ask him what he's doing today. That was always my go-to.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I took that away
with
from
the
you.
Preds. I'm like, what are you doing on the day off, man?
And they're not practicing today, so can actually
gosh, it
enjoy
would have been
that.
a great day to hang out. We could have gone and got some coffee in Green Hills.
That would have been fun. All right, reset our question of the day, JoJo.
All right, 20 years ago today, Gary Anderson kicked the improbable field goal in the playoffs versus the Ravens. He had just turned 72. He was living in some remote fishing village in Canada, and he kicked the field goal. So we got to start thinking, what's your favorite Titan moment? We're positive today. Non-Music City Miracle, okay? Give us a moment that maybe we'd forgotten about or one that's special to you. Titan moment as we wind down the season for the Tennessee Titans, being off the Gary Anderson kick 20 years ago today.
John McClain coming up at 9:30. Looking forward to that conversation with him because more surrounding Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon. Tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home facing Reinhardt with pregame beginning at 6 and the tip-off at 6:30. Coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 93.3classichits.com. More Chase and Big Joke coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. John McClain from Houston coming up in just a few minutes at the bottom of the hour. But our question of the day that we have thrown out there on Twitter and also these airwaves, your favorite Titans moment that is not the Music City Miracle.
Based off of 20 years ago today, Gary Anderson with the field goal to beat the Ravens in that big game up there. Michael on Twitter says his moment is the Josh Norman stiff arm. And that's what we're looking for, things like that maybe we'd forgotten about, because if you go back and watch the Josh Norman stiff arm, the reaction of Taylor Lewan and the guys on the bench when you slow it down, it's just simply fantastic, because that's something Josh Norman will never, ever live down. And it's great in real time. It's even better in slow time.
So do you follow, I think, Bob McHenry or whatever is his name? He's like he does like fake play-by-play where he cusses and everything.
Oh, yeah. I don't find what you're talking about, yes.
Yeah, so he did one for that, and like his commentary, he's like, sit down, you little, like, I laugh every time at that.
That's good.
Chasing Big Joe, presented by Regal Realty Group here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hair Metal Henry says, favorite Titan moment, firing Ken Wisenhunt. I will never forget that, because
on a Monday.
It was yeah. So on Friday, after the shows, we would record like a promo that would run all weekend and be like, hey, coming up on Monday's show, this is what we got. And so, on Friday, you don't really know what you're going to do Monday yet, because you got to let the weekend play out. Like, the games had to play out. The Titans were bad, but
right.
And so I'll never forget Darren cutting a promo and be like, you never know. And that was what ran all weekend. And then getting ready for the show, he calls. I'm like literally getting here. He calls me and goes, Titans just fired Wisenhunt. Get ready. Because I, at that point, had never really gone through that. I guess I had gone through Munchak, but, nothing like mid-season and stuff like that. And so that was a wild day.
Yeah. It was before the Saints game that week, too.
Yep.
As
and
well.
then Malarkey takes over, and they go and they beat New Orleans and everything. But that was certainly a big moment. 15:45, and there's been a lot of votes for this one, beating the Patriots in the playoffs in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of Vrabel's best coaching jobs, because he out-Belichicked Belichick.
Yep. That was Tom Brady's final game as a Patriot, too. And
who picked him off?
That bonehead Logan Ryan. Can't stand Logan Ryan. Cannot stand that man.
Clinton, Clarksville, Henry's 99-yard against Buffalo. Does he mean Jacksonville, or did he have one against? Was the stiff arm 99 yards?
Stiff arm was against Buffalo.
I know, but how long was
Jacksonville? No,
that's what I
stiff
thought.
arm was like a 5-yard run.
Okay,
that was a Thursday night game.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Fox.
Right.
Yep.
The stiff arm, if I recall, was the COVID game where they played on like a Tuesday.
I think you're correct. The 99-yard one was a Thursday.
Yeah,
Yes.
Now he's had a few big runs, but I think the 99 yards was a Thursday. That was Jacksonville.
Because he almost stiff-armed Corey Davis. Remember, he turned
Yeah,
around and got there. 7491 says, the comeback versus the Giants in 06, they were down 21 in the fourth. They went 24-21. Pac-Man had 2 interceptions and a long punt return. I do remember, though, was it Matthew Kanuka, was that his name, who wrapped up Vince Young and was going to bring him to the ground, and he thought they'd blow a whistle, and they didn't. And so Vince Young scrambled out. And
Yeah. I do remember that.
That was actually, that was 06, and he hit, I forget who he hit down was it Brandon Jones? For that play, and moved on down the field. The 99-yarder in 2000 drive in 2009 when he hit Kenny Britt in the back of the end zone versus the Cardinals was fan. If we could do a whole segment again on the what if Vince Young had been an all-pro, fantastic quarterback.
So I heard Robbie Rexroad and Kaharski talking about it this morning of, if this is Derrick Henry's last game with the Titans, where do you put him in Titans lore? Is he the greatest Titan of all time? A lot of people say McNair. And I thought Paul made some good points on McNair, why it's not McNair. But, they're just that – and Robbie goes – what's interesting about this conversation is because it morphed into, was he the most marketable Titan ever? And I would say that's probably true. Yeah. But Vince Young could have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he was early on. Like, he was Rookie of the Year, and when he doing, like, the Campbells, and he was on Madden. I mean, there was –
He shot a massive Reebok commercial that they scrapped after his meltdown in 2008. Jim has a good one. This might be the most underrated Titans moments never talked about. Eddie George looking up at the Jumbotron in Indianapolis in the playoff game. He makes a long run so he could see where the guys were behind him. That's an iconic moment.
In
The 99 season,
99
yeah.
season, yeah.
When he's looking up and they beat Peyton up there in Indianapolis and running down the field, and that is an amazing moment because Eddie George outran that entire team, that secondary. That's how you saw how fast Eddie George was at the time. Pretty good.
Josh in Ashland City, Chris Johnson to not only get the 2,000-yard season, but to score a touchdown on the run that put him over 2,000 yards.
He would have had over 2,100 yards, but they called an awful holding call on Ahmad Hall that brought it back.
Yeah,
in that last game. Awful, awful, awful call by the refs. And Chris Johnson, that season it spiraled down, but the last 4 or 5 games, Fisher was on a mission to get Chris Johnson. He'll never admit it. But we were watching that game, those practices, that team every day to get over 2,000 yards, and he got it.
You'll like this one. Caleb and Mount Juliet, the Finnegan-Andre Johnson fight.
Yeah. Well, Andre Johnson, boy, if he goes in the Hall of Fame, put that on the video board behind him. That was an epic.
Well, and
beatdown.
Finnegan and Derek had it wasn't a fight, but they had like a little spat.
2008 season, yeah. But Andre
slap
Johnson did. Andre Johnson had the beat down.
Yeah, they both got thrown out, right?
Yes, they did. That's right. Yeah. Gosh, you guys are rolling in. Anytime we do this stuff, you guys are great with all these. Just keep pouring in.
Skyler on the Henry front. Come on now. Henry carried this organization for 4 years, literally carried them to the AFC Championship just for his quarterback to lose it for them with 3 picks. Eddie and McNair had each other. You got some stuff confused there, Skyler. The 3 picks was the Bengals game, not the AFC Championship game.
Correct.
And Derek was hurt the year that they were the 1 seed and then got to the Bengals game. He played in that game, but he wasn't very effective.
This is funny from Donovan. This is why I love autocorrect. Going back to our interview earlier, he says Colton Citizens is the most complete player on the Preds team. He's a Swiss Army knife. We agree, Donovan, and keep your autocorrect on because
it's the best.
That made me laugh.
Shout out to Ricky. He said when I won hit a $5,000 parlay this season in the Texans game.
It's like Fight Club, man. Don't talk about it.
I know.
It never happened.
It never happened.
You never bring it up.
Coming up next, our man we always bring up, John McClain from Houston. We'll get his thoughts on this weekend, a very, very big Week 18 for the Texans, the team that he covers, and also the Mike Vrabel, Ran Carthon stuff just won't go away. We'll discuss that with him. Coming up next, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, broadcasting live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios. 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. John McClain coming up in just a minute or so. Hey, this Monday, tune in at 6:30 as Washington and Michigan face off in the college football playoff national championship game, only on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That's presented by Twin Peaks and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Actually, it'll be 7 o'clock after the Commodore Hour, but we will have that for you on both 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan. Looking forward to that.
That'll be a great game, man. And
I'm
Houston.
excited.
Who else is in Houston?
John McClain.
That's right.
That's right. He joins us now. John, good morning. Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm great, guys. I've got a history lesson for you before
we
we
love
get
that.
into the playoff race. Today is the 40th anniversary of the Oilers hiring a head coach, Hugh Campbell, who's the only time in history I have ever seen a team hire a head coach just to get a quarterback. Warren Moon was a free agent coming out of the Canadian Football League. Hugh Campbell had coached him with Edmonton. Campbell was with the Los Angeles franchise in the United States Football League. The Oilers general manager, Ladd Hersey, had been pursuing Moon for a year with his agent, Lee Steinberg, and was determined to get him. And it came down, there were teams like the Buccaneers, the Giants, the Oilers, Seahawks were the final four. Came down to the Oilers and Seahawks. Warren had won the Rose Bowl with Washington. He lived in Seattle. Everybody thought he was going to Seattle. But, boy, the ace in the hole was hiring his head coach, Hugh Campbell. Warren signed here, and then Campbell was gone less than 2 years later because he did a terrible job and replaced by the most controversial coach in the franchise's history, and that would be Jerry Glanville.
My goodness. We love history lessons, John. Thank you for that. Hey, before we talk NFL, I know the national championship is going to be down there in Houston in your backyard. Are people disappointed that the Longhorns did not make it?
Oh, my God, yes, Joe. Now I'll say everybody. No, everybody hates the Longhorns, which are numerous. We're glad they didn't get in. I personally wanted them in because Mattress Mac, who I do a video with every week, he had a promotion going by an X amount of furniture, and if the Longhorns win the national championship, you get it all free. And he had bet a lot on the Longhorns, and I know he has 2 monstrous suites at the stadium, and everything will still be sold out. It might be the best game, Washington versus Michigan, but people here were really bummed, not just to not have the Longhorns, but not have Alabama, because Alabama people would have been really fired up. All their fans would have been able to get here easily. And but if you guys are looking for a ticket pretty cheap, you can get one because I think Darren Ravel said it was the biggest drop he'd ever seen.
Ooh.
They've gone from like 2,200 cheap ticket to 650.
Wow. John McClain joins us on the program. This story that I'm about to bring up is like a cockroach. It just won't go away. It keeps coming up. The Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon, there is a rift. They don't like each other. They're not getting along. Jason LaCanfora has brought it up now. Former GM Michael Lombardi brought it up on his podcast. And, you know, I know that Vrabel was very passionate yesterday. That he hates losing. It sucks to lose. He said some other words I can't say on the radio. But why won't this story go away, John?
Because media people keep it up. Has anybody in Nashville said that? Anybody covers a team like you guys do? And it's all from afar. Mike Lombardi also said Mike Vrabel's contract was up, and it's not. And so I remember Mike Lombardi, who I like, had a report, and I wrote it, that C.J. Stroud was hard to get along with, basically called him a prima donna without using those words, and nothing could be further from the truth. I never heard that anywhere else. Never heard about the S2 cognition test, of course. Everybody did. But I never heard anything, and he's an incredible teammate. So people hear it. They don't make it up, but they hear it from other people. And I still remember one Sunday I got Jason let's see, Lockenfora. His nickname was No Lockenferma for a while. Jason Lockenfora had a quote that said the Texans general manager Rick Smith was going to be fired. This was before the last game. He was going to be moved into the ticket office, and that they had already begun their search for a new general manager. So I called Bob McNair. This was on a Sunday before the game. He said it's absolutely not true. 4 years later, Rick resigned, and I'm surprised he didn't go, we had it first. If you keep track of all the – and people are smart to say could or would. If you say it will happen, boy, you better be right. Like in New England, it's interesting because Tom Curran, who's covered that team forever, reported weeks ago the decision to get rid of Belichick was made after their trip to England. Ian Rappaport, who's covered that team a long time, but not locally now, said that's not true. So after it's over, of course, Curran can say, well, I had that weeks ago, and Rappaport will say, well, he just determined to get rid of Belichick. So that's the way it is today, because anything anybody reports gets picked up a lot of places. I personally have no idea if Mike Vrabel and Rand Cawthorn get along. And I haven't heard anything like that. And I've talked to a lot of people. But I'll tell you this, if they don't, then Amy Adams Strunk will do something about it. But I have not heard that except from national people.
Yeah, and I wonder, too, of how much is it that maybe they disagree on some things, and you're going to have that. It's also the first year that they've worked together. So, I mean, they're having to figure that out.
They're going to have disagreements. All coaches and general managers do. Sometimes they can be heated. They can be shouting. But the key is you don't make it personal and you don't hold it against them. It's like D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio have had a great draft, free agent period. Free agents like Derek Barnett, who continues to be outstanding, the Nashville native and UT product. And they signed him off the street. And so but they admit, man, we have disagreements. And so I remember one time Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reeves had a shouting match so loud in Nashville. I said it could be heard all the way to Houston. But they continued to work together. They continued to put a good product on the field. So sometimes people hear about an organization. Sometimes players hear about it, tell their agent. The agents can't wait to curry favors with the national media. So I put a stock in about what I do the weather. I believe about 10% of it.
Has there ever been the perfect harmony in a GM and a head coach? I think it's like the perfect marriage. I mean, you're going to argue, you're going to fight a little bit, but you're going to agree a lot. So all this is kind of like nonsensical because, yeah, they're going to have disagreements from time to time. But has there ever been a perfect GM head coach relationship?
The best that I can see, Joe, in the NFL right now is Pete Carroll and John Schneider. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have a good one going on, but not as long as those other two. Now, both those head coaches have final say on personnel. A lot of people don't know it. I hear people go, man, John Lynch made a great draft. Well, draft choice. Well, Kyle Shanahan has to sign off on it. It's in his contract. But if they can, and you know they have disagreements all the time, but they continue to work together and do a really good job together. And it's because they win. They don't have winning seasons every year. The 49ers started 0-9 under Kyle Shanahan. D'Amico Ryans was on that roster. And they thought, oh, my goodness, are we ever going to win? Then they trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and win 5 in a row. So during that 0-9 start, they weren't having some serious disagreements about personnel decisions. I think this time next year, you guys will have a much better understanding of the relationship between Cawthorn and Vrabel. Vrabel likes things done his way. Cawthorn's been wanting to be a general manager probably since he figured out he couldn't be a player like his daddy. So he's a GM for the first time, and he's got ways he would like to do it. And, they've got to meet in the middle, and this is a big off season for them, as everybody knows, because they need talent. And so I think it maybe that's true. Maybe they hate each other, But I doubt. How can you work up a hate for somebody you haven't even known a year?
Exactly. John, we have talked about head coaches, coaches of the year. You're down in Houston with a guy that I think should get serious consideration for coach with your D'Amico Ryans, because you even said yourself you had them winning, what, 3 or 4 games?
They were projected to be the second worst team in the league to Arizona, and Arizona, by virtue of giving them the pick that turned into Will Anderson, who has a chance to be Defensive Rookie of the Year and has been tremendous. Everybody thought Arizona was going to have the first 2 picks. They'd take quarterback Caleb Williams and wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. and be set for years. Now they're not going to get the number 1 pick, and the Texans are going to have a pick somewhere in the 20s, I think. And if the Texans win on Saturday, right now they have a winning record. They're guaranteed of a winning record after they've won combined for 7 wins the last 2 years and 11 the last 3 years and 3 last season. The transformation has been unbelievable, and it starts with Stroud and like Will Anderson. And so it's but Kevin Stefanski's going to win it. He's got it in the bag because of Joe Flacco, because of all the attention Flacco's getting, and Flacco has done a great job, and so has Stefanski. But, they didn't win 3 games last year, and, of course, I'm partial to D'Amico Ryans, but Stefanski's going to win it.
We'll have more with John coming up next, get his thoughts on a big Week 18 that will set the playoffs up for the NFL. John McClain, more with him next. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3. The Game, continuing our conversation with John McClain from Houston, and it is Week 18, the final week of the regular season. John, and teams vying for playoff spots, including the team you cover down in Houston and the Texans, as they'll play Saturday night against the Colts. How do you feel about this matchup and what might happen with Houston after a improbable season?
It's very excuse me. It's very interesting because the Colts won the first game here, 31-20, I believe it was, second game of the season, and that was the first time after they lost at Baltimore in the opener we saw what C.J. Stroud could become. Playing catch-up, he threw for 384 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions at a 106 rating, and we're okay. Well, that's why they drafted him second overall. And I think it would be so interesting because if the Texans can win in Indianapolis, and they're 4-4 in their last 8 games there, including the win last year that had them to settle for Stroud because they lost the Bryce Young pick by beating Colts. It would be so interesting if the Texans won. They're all going to have to be pulling for the Titans on Sunday. And the only thing better would be is if the Titans were wearing Columbia blue, which infuriates everybody here. And if they were, they'd still have to be pulling for them to upset the Jaguars so the Texans could win the AFC South. And I'll give you another quick history lesson. People, I'm sorry if I do this too much, but things pop in my head. If the Titans win and the Texans win, Texans will host the Browns for the second time in 3 weeks. Browns pounded them here. 1988, last game of the season in Cleveland, the winner hosted the wild card game against the other team. Browns won. Oilers go back up for the wild card win. Oilers win for the wild card game. Oilers win. Marty Schottenheimer got fired by Art Modell after that game, which turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him because then he went to Kansas City and became one of the greatest coaches in NFL history.
Wow, there you go. More history with John McClain for sure. How poetic is it that what is likely going to be Bill Belichick's final game as the head coach of the Patriots is against the Jets? Both teams are bad, but just with the history there, I find that to be funny.
Oh, yeah, because he was going to be the head coach promoted by Bill Parcells, his mentor, and he resigned on a napkin at the news conference. And the Jets and Parcells went ballistic. The only reason Kraft hired him was because Kraft hated Parcells after the way Parcells left New England. And so it ended up Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner, had to get involved. And when he did, they had to give over draft choices. But I'm guessing it worked. It was worth it. And then I did a thing for the NFL Network about 3 years ago. What if? What if this had happened? What if that had happened? And I said, has there ever been a bigger what if than if Mo Lewis, the Jets linebacker, had not hit Drew Bledsoe in a preseason in 2001 and forced second-year quarterback Tom Brady into the lineup? What if Bledsoe, who was the star of the team, the starting quarterback, his job was not in jeopardy, everybody loved Bledsoe, but if Lewis had not hit him and Bledsoe had stayed there and finished his career, whatever would have happened to Tom Brady?
That is $1 million question there, John. Just when you think you've seen everything in football, along comes Saturday night's game between the Lions and the Cowboys. Have we still not processed what went on, John? That was just bizarre.
No, it's the Lions got too cute. They tried to confuse the Cowboys by sending 3 tackles over there to the referee. They confused the referee. Obviously, they confused the Cowboys because Decker caught the touchdown pass. And then Dan Campbell said, well, I told them before the game we were going to do it. In those meetings before the game, the referee's not even in it. A couple of the others are. So Dan Campbell, who tried to get too cute and it backfired, should learn when to kick instead of going for 2 all the time. Had he kicked early in the game a field goal instead of going for a failed 4th down, as Troy Aikman said, man, he should take the points here, it would have been a moot point at the end of the game. So you live and learn, and the league sent out a thing to every team this week reminding them of how you're supposed to check in as an eligible receiver. What the referee should have done, and he was trying to hurry up the game, he just barely listened and kept going. He should have stopped, or the Lions should have had a player fall down and get a cramp. And while that player was getting a cramp, then they go over to the referee and say, hey, by the way, just to make sure you're clear on this, it's 68, not 70.
Yeah, that was the thing. Why, if you're not going to check in, why go talk to the ref? And I kind of feel sorry for the ref on that because the Lions sent all those guys over to him and trying to figure out what was going on. So, yeah, that whole thing, like the deception and deceiving, I fall in that. That was just crazy. Just send the one guy over, right?
Yeah, you don't ever – they'll never do that again. You have to announce who's eligible. And as soon as they announced 70 and the Lions knew it was 68, that's when somebody should have dropped to the ground like they were having some kind of seizure, and so they could go over and clarify it to them. And they're not going to do it again, and teams are aware of it. And it gets like how many times last week against the Titans, I get so tired here at 61 as an eligible receiver. And so, but we know who's an eligible receiver when he comes in for the Titans, and that's the way it was supposed to be in that game. And then Dan Campbell admitted the next day they were trying to confuse him, and they confused the wrong guy.
Exactly. John, during that game, they honored Jimmy Johnson with the Ring of Honor at Cowboy Stadium. And we go back to the hypotheticals you had a moment ago about Bledsoe and Tom Brady. Had Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones worked it out, how many Super Bowls consecutively do you think they would have won? Because the team didn't start getting dismantled until 96, 97. They could have possibly won 4 or 5 in a row. Your thoughts on that?
Well, they could have, but free agency was going to kill them. Guys wanted, they want the ring, but they want to get paid. They would have lost. They started losing players. But I don't know, the disharmony between those two used to be good friends. And I heard Jimmy one time, when they were still on the outs, say the problem was Jerry used to stay up in his office and left the coaching and the personnel to me. And one time when he was on the sidelines, he said, man, I'd like to do some of this. And I knew we were in trouble because he wanted to get involved in personnel. And so Jimmy walked away with a $2 million check after only 5 years. And it's a shame if you're a Cowboys fan, to never know what those two could have accomplished. And they actually could have done something the Cowboys haven't done since then, 27 years, actually go back to an NFC championship game.
John, why, Jimmy's a great example of a coach that has most of the say, that it works. Obviously with Belichick and Brady, it worked. But I feel like most of the time when the coach gets all the power, it doesn't work. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'll give you an example. As I said earlier, guys like John Lynch and Pete Carroll and Andy Reid, they have all the power, even though they never say it. They let their GM get credit for the draft and free agency. But like here, as soon as Bill O'Brien got hired from Penn State, he told me off the record, he said, a coach can't win consistently in the NFL unless he has control of personnel. And I thought, Rick Smith, the GM, had done a really good job. I said, he better watch his back. And, man, he needed to watch his back. But it was 4 years of their infighting that just about ripped this organization apart. And then Rick resigned to take care of his wife who had cancer. And they won through 2019 but couldn't get past the division round. It's just so much. If the head coach has a big ego and he defies his personnel people and his scouts, and he wants everything done exactly his way, he's going to make mistakes. That's why it doesn't work a lot, especially for guys who are doing it for the first time.
John, 20 years ago today, Gary Anderson kicked that field goal in the playoffs. The Titans beat the Ravens, an improbable game. They called Gary Anderson off the fishing lake up in Canada somewhere. I was an Oilers fan in the 80s. Who was the kicker for the Steelers that beat the Oilers in the playoff game on New Year's Eve night?
Gary Anderson, and cost Jerry Glanville his job. So everybody was not happy losing here at the Astrodome to the Steelers, but at that point, everybody was tired of Glanville. And but it was a killer because the Oilers were favored, and they lost. It was, I think, a 50-yarder.
That was Gary. I had no idea.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Gary Anderson, he kicked it like, what, he's 70?
Yeah, he sure did. I did that. Real quick before I let you go, when you covered the Oilers, what was the most deflating loss you ever had? For some reason, the Joe Montana playoff game in 93 stands out to me. I don't know why.
No, the year before, Buffalo, they led in the playoffs 3 years in a row. They led in Denver, and John Elway had a long drive in which he said that was more satisfying to him than the drive in Cleveland, because a lot of people thought that was a fluke. And the guy that was a bad snap to win the game for the Broncos, and the holder did a great job of getting the ball down, and that holder was Gary Kubiak, former Oiler ball boy. And then, but that game, then the next year they go to Buffalo. When you blow a game 35-3 midway through the third quarter, and Bud had left early because he thought it was over to go to his plane, and oops. And I've still never been in a stadium. That game wasn't sold out, so it wasn't televised locally. And by the end of it, when they had gone ahead, and the Oilers had to, Aldo Greco had to kick a field goal to go to overtime, and then the Bills won. But that stadium was full, the parking lot was full. Everybody in Western New York wanted to be just in the environment, the atmosphere. So next year, Willie Davis, who went on to play for the Titans, made the best play of his career, Montana's last miracle, and that was 93. And then they didn't get in the playoffs again until they got to Nashville.
Wow.
Wow, great stuff as always, John. Appreciate it, and should be interesting to see how the final week of the season shakes out. We'll talk next week.
And all the Texans fans are sending all this love to the Titans. What'll probably happen, the Texans will lose, and the Titans will win, and it'll be a moot point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
They'll blame the Oilers jerseys, I'm sure. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. John McClain joining us every Wednesday at 9:30. Coming up next, Mike Vrabel was very passionate yesterday, and I got to tell you, it got my attention. Want to discuss that with you next here on Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. He's Big Joe Dubin. I'm Chase McCabe. Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier on the ones and twos on this Wednesday. Hope you're having an awesome day to this point. Yesterday, Mike Vrabel addressed the media, which was usually would have been his Monday press conference, but they held it on Tuesday with the holiday on Monday. He'll be back at it today as the Titans on the practice field as they get ready for one more game against the Jacksonville Jaguars at Nissan Stadium. Could it be the final game with Ryan Tannehill, the final game with Derrick Henry? Time will tell. But I found it very, very interesting when Mike was going through the press conference, and this was towards the end, and he was, you got people that want to ask, all right, do you want to play spoiler? You know you're not playing for anything. And he was asked this question by Gentry Estes of the Tennessean of what a win against Jacksonville would mean.
Mike said we need to win for a lot of reasons. Expand on.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey, ever need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought or no? I'm just curious.
Why?
It sucks.
Is that
Losing. Awful. That's why I want to win. Because you don't sleep. You want to win for the players that bust their tail. That's it. It's not about, hey, we'll go into the offseason with a good note. Nobody knows what you did on January 7th or 8th or 6th in April when you come back. But, you want to see, just it all come together. And just put 4 quarters together. Win a game like we talked about. You come in here, well, you close game. Yeah, we feel the same way. In that game the other day, we got to put ourselves into a competitive game where it's, back and forth, and there's some field position, and then you score, and you take care of the football. And we just hadn't done that in the opportunities that we had, that were like, okay, we fought and we were close, but I think that's why. You just put yourself in a competitive situation, come up with a way to, make a play in the second half to win the game. That's what I hope for. Sorry about my language.
That was Mike Vrabel yesterday.
Yeah, he should apologize for that potty mouth.
I know. So I heard that and watched the video. It's been going around to see his body language and everything. And I got to tell you, Joe, I absolutely loved that. I love that passion. I know that he's mad, that he hates to lose. I mean, that's when I heard that, I immediately thought, there's the player. There's Mike Vrabel, the player. There's that guy that busted his ass for so many years in the National Football League. There's that guy. And people have been, kind of getting on him about his body language and not showing passion, and it just seems like he doesn't want to be there. Is that passionate enough for you? Because that's what I want in the head coach. I loved that yesterday. Now, what it means moving forward, I don't know.
Okay.
It probably got a lot of people's attention because he dropped an F-bomb. But I thought it was real. I thought it was passionate. And I think that's exactly what that football team needed going into this weekend.
I thought we were going to see the fake tears that John Robinson had at the Combine. I thought we were getting to that moment there, but we didn't get to that moment there. Yeah, I mean, I told you before, you want a coach or a teammate who hates losing more than winning. It's that simple. Look at Jordan, Brady. All these guys hated losing. They hated it. I'm not sure now players hate losing. I'm not sure. It's like, oh, well, whatever. After games and seeing guys signing jerseys for each other and shaking it. Come on. You just lost a football game. You could do that someplace else, not right there. So if he's passionate about it and hates the losing part of that, I'm all for it. And I like that. But, where was that after the Saints game?
Sure.
Where was that after your dismal performance for Cleveland? Where was that? Where was that? Why is it now coming out? Trying to send a message out to the league and everybody else of how much you don't like losing now? Where was that a few weeks ago? You should be mad every week. Every week you should be mad if you lose. You should be mad if you lose. And celebrate the highs and, don't dwell on the lows, but my goodness, so if he means it and all that other good stuff, but I'd like to see that week 1 after the Saints loss.
Yeah, well, but I think if you don't think he's been mad about losing, then you don't know him. I
don't know him.
I think that for those of us that have watched the Titans the last 6 years under Mike Vrabel, I think it's pretty easy to tell when he's not happy about something. He got a little more passionate yesterday for sure, but I think this has been terrible for him this year. I can see that this has just been awful for him.
Yeah. Mike on the text line, thank you. I'm glad Vrabel's mad, but he's had all season to fix it. Why the passion and anger now? The season is over. I concur with that. It's funny that we were in the locker room, in the media room after the win over the Dolphins, right? And you heard the players celebrating, and, you saw how tempered.
And you and I were back on the bandwagon.
We were, because we saw that performance when nobody thought they'd win. And I saw how tempered he was, like, hey, it's a great win. We're going to celebrate it tonight and get back to work. And you're like, all right. But you could tell that the win was like, okay, I love winning, but, the losing part of that really, really bugs me. And it came out yesterday and all that. I'd like to have seen it a long time ago, because he is to blame for this. He is to blame. You're the head coach. At the end of the day, it's your fault, right?
It's not all his fault.
His record, it's going to be – when Ryan Tannehill goes to Kroger and Chops afternoon, are they going to say, hey, you're 5-11 this year? No, it's on Vrabel. Vrabel's the head coach.
No, they're going to say, hey, you threw 3 interceptions against the Bengals 4 years ago, or
in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, you're the head coach. Take responsibility. Take it.
Yeah.
All great coaches have. Lombardi, Chuck Noll. Landry. These guys. Ditka called his. That's why I love Dick. He called his players out and said, "We're in this to win together." And so we don't see that from coaches anymore. And that's another thing. I think Paul had talked about this a while ago about we want coaches to be passionate and fired up, and then when they do, we're like, "Why are you saying it now? Why?" and all that. So it's a fine line. But if he's upset.
Here's the thing. Look, I will be the first to call out Mike Vrabel when he does something that I don't like. I have been, during his entire tenure here, I have been, at times like, what are you doing? Why won't you answer a question? Stop being a jerk. Just get up there and do what you need to do. I'll be the first to tell you that. But I still think he's a good coach. I don't think he's not great. He's not elite, by any means yet. But I can also sit here and tell you that the former GM that did a lot of good things, Derrick Henry, Jeffrey Simmons, did a lot of good things. He did a lot of bad things too.
Right.
Missed on the offensive line. Now, Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel addressed the offensive line this offseason by not really addressing the offensive line this offseason. They signed Andre Dillard, which was a bust. Brunskill's okay. Skoronski's a rookie. Duncan shouldn't have been playing as a rookie. Still needs to develop. So they didn't really do what they needed to do, but they were having to address the offensive line because John Robinson had missed so bad on a lot of draft picks. So, again, there's blame to go around. But my point in all of this is everybody that's turned on Vrabel, whether it's the fans or Jared or whoever, that's fine. And maybe it will turn out to be the right move if they move on from him. But you don't know. Yeah. You don't know what it's going to look like. Just like when Amy Adams-Strunk got mad that A.J. Brown ran all over her team and the Eagles won and she made a knee-jerk move, even though she says she decided weeks ago, which was BS,
right,
and fired John Robinson. Now look at it. You don't know what it's going to look like. That's why being in those positions to make those moves is very, very difficult, and not everybody can do it. Because you may think it's better on the other side, but it's not. So just remember that.
Do you have a Vrabel poster in your office? I'm curious.
I have candles. I have some candles. He's a candle guy, so I have some remember when he had the mustache? I have that.
You have that picture up there of him?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it's we'll see how it ends out.
It's next to my dartboard.
I know we go to the break. You think he's back next year?
I do. I don't think he's going anywhere. I like all this stuff. It just won't go away.
Why is it not going away?
I think John made a good point. I think it's because there's just media people that are just keeping it out there. In any little, like if
You think that's their goal of the Wick every day? We're going to keep the Vrabel story out
well,
there?
no, because I think it's the typical, I heard from so-and-so that heard from so-and-so that Vrabel and Carthon got into a heated discussion over the offensive tackle. And then that becomes, Mike Vrabel wants out of Tennessee.
Do you think – we'll go to the break, but I'm going to ask you this question. You think they're both back next year? Don't answer that.
We'll discuss
Don't
that.
answer that.
I will not. That's a tease. We'll discuss that coming up next. It's the Chase and Big Joe Show presented by Regal Realty Group here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, my friends, it's Middle Tennessee's best healthcare in the comfort of your own home. You know, I'm talking about Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. The website, medicalhousecalls.com. No more heading to an urgent care. No more sitting in a waiting room, driving across town. Board-certified nurse practitioners and physician's assistants come to you. And look, don't take my word. Just read the numerous, fantastic reviews that Medical House Calls has gotten. It truly is a game changer. In fact, Chuck McDowell was a client. He loved the service so much, he bought the company. And for years, I had to leave work and check on my mom when she was very sick. Now, you can have Medical House Calls check in on your loved ones to make sure everything is okay if you cannot get there. It's a great place. Visit the website today, medicalhousecalls.com.
Chase and Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Visit springhillac.com for more info. So you asked me the question, do I think that both Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon will be back next year? Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think they will. Now, I think there's going to be some hard conversations behind closed doors between the two of them and between the Amy Adams Strunk and the two of them. And, I've been saying that Mike Vrabel needs to have a heart-to-heart with Amy Adams Strunk on, his commitment and he wants to be here. Because, look, if the answer is, Amy, I've had a great 6 years, but I think it's time to move on, then okay, then move on. Then you don't want a head coach, you don't want a player, you don't want anybody in your organization that doesn't want to be in your organization. So if the answer is he doesn't want to be here, then goodbye.
Right. Here's the article that Jason Lockenfor wrote in the Washington Post, right? Have you read this yet?
Yeah. I've read several of these.
I keep hearing Vrabel and GM Ran Carthon are not a match. This looks like a rebuilding team, and Vrabel would have trade value. Rival officials believe the Bears and Patriots would covet Vrabel. The Titans could turn to the former assistant Arthur Smith if he's out in Atlanta and see if he can develop quarterback Will Levis. It's like something I would write. The Titans are 0-5 in the week AFC South, 5-8 team, blah, blah, blah. Without scoring 30 points, the longest streak in the NFL on a franchise record. I could see a trade, the first GM said. The second GM said, I know it's not a good fit there between the coach and GM. I think something can happen. This is like we wrote this during the break. This is nonsense.
So here's my takeaway from that. Ran Carthon and Mike Vrabel are best friends and everything is absolutely fine. Because when Jason Lockenfor writes something, I go the opposite.
Well, he writes this about Arthur Smith coming possibly.
Is John Bon Jovi buying the team?
Coming to Nashville. It says anything short of firing would be shocking. Owner Arthur Blank isn't a big fan of the work being done by Arthur Smith. And plenty of people around Blank at the most recent league meetings came away thinking a coaching search was imminent. His painful losses since then haven't helped. And there was a revolving door quarterback. I don't care. I love this. The first anonymous GM. I don't care what anybody writes. Arthur Smith.
Are they a football GM or
do
you talk to somebody in the NBA?
The GM at the Zaxby's in Hermitage?
Yeah.
Damn good guy.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the GM. Have you tried that Zaxby's in Hermitage?
I have not.
Bad.
No.
Not bad.
No. Isn't Gator Mike a GM somewhere? Is he the one?
Yeah, we're not going to him. He is. He just got a new job, too, downtown. Congratulations, Gator. Yeah, GM Gator Mike.
That's it.
Chase is on to something.
There it is. Chase is on the case.
I just think I've known this for a long time, and where there's smoke, there's some sort of fire. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, I mean, there
might
might be, and it's like I asked John, it won't go away. I mean, I get it. It's a story that won't go away, but and we'll know. I mean, by this time next week, I think we'll have an answer to this question. If they're both here, then I think they're both going to be here. And if one's going to be gone, or both are going to be gone, then it'll have happened. Because you don't drag that stuff out. Like once the final snap is played on Sunday, the season is over for the Tennessee Titans.
But wasn't it just, I don't know, wasn't it odd in Miami? There was Ran. I know he's not supposed to talk to the head coach. It was just, I don't know. Maybe I just fed too much into
that. We didn't see him much around Vrabel.
And the body language in the press box was I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like I'm staring at him the whole time because I could see him over your shoulder. So I'd be like,
he look. And I mean, we walked by him, But here's my thing. I noticed all that stuff too, but I'm like, I'm not around. Like I don't know what he's usually like, and there's people that are around them a lot, and that tell me no, it's fine, and so I think it's a valid point, but at the same time, like I can't speak on it because I'm not around him. Yeah, I'm watching this from afar like everybody else.
I'm just telling you, man. I think where there's a smoke, there's a little fire, and I don't think. One of the two is not coming back.
So you say one of them, and which one do you think it is?
I think they're not getting rid of Ran Carthon. Tell you right, they're not getting rid of him.
Yep.
They are not getting rid of him. And I think if Vrabel, the opportunity comes up, and if the Patriots offer and they want Mike Vrabel and they offer a package deal of draft choices and this and that, you'd be foolish not to take it.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting, too, with the jobs that, are going to be open. Because charters are already open. The Raiders are open, but I think they have their guy, and if they don't, they're stupid. They should never win anything. If they don't hire Antonio Pierce, then I give up.
The Cardinals guy saved his job by beating the Eagles. I don't even think Cardinals head coach.
Well, and it was his first year.
Yeah.
They were. I think that's a team that was better than the record showed.
Remember, we called. Well, I didn't. You said Dennis Allen, the Saints, is gone. Heck, they can make the playoffs now. That Arthur Smith's gone.
He's in. I think Art's gone.
Your boy Eberflus in Chicago has become a fan favorite.
I think he's saved his job.
And they really like him. I think in Minnesota. Is Minnesota the most disappointing professional football franchise ever?
Probably.
Ever.
Yeah.
They've been the 4 Super Bowl. Buffalo's there, but Buffalo is fun in a different kind of way. And they're lovable. But Minnesota, to me, the Vikings, have been the most frustrating franchise since the Super Bowl started.
Mm-hmm.
Every year the expectations, every year they get cried. 98, they could have won it all. They didn't do it. Was it last year Daniel Jones beat them in Minneapolis? I think so, in the playoffs. I think the Vikings are just, the most frustrating professional football team around.
I think that Todd Bowles has saved his job in Tampa because, I think they're going to win that division.
Washington needs the Commanders need a new head coach.
Riverboat Ron's going to be out. I'll tell you what. I think the surprising yet not surprising move is going to be Mike Tomlin's going to be out with the Steelers.
No way.
I think he's out.
If he makes the playoffs?
I don't think they make the playoffs.
Somebody mentioned him taking the Carolina job. How that'd be perfect for him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those.
Do you think Mike Tomlin's gone?
Yeah.
If they make the playoffs?
No, they're not making the playoffs. That's what I'm saying.
They could. They're 9-7.
They got to beat Baltimore.
Well, if they do,
they're not beating Baltimore.
Well, I'm glad you're not the coach. Chase McCabe says Pittsburgh goes into.
Well, I'm not the coach. I'm a radio guy talking on the radio show, giving an opinion.
Baltimore's clinched everything. They don't. They're good.
Sure, but I still don't think the Steelers are not a good team.
You play Lamar Jackson's Saturday night?
Probably not.
Okay.
Is the number one seed? Do they have that?
I think so. They're 13-3. Nobody else is close to
yeah.
They number one seed. Yeah, they wrapped it up.
No, probably not.
Okay.
But I still don't think they beat Baltimore.
And you bitch. Where's that game? I don't know.
It is in Baltimore.
Okay. Yeah, I think that with Lamar Jackson out, Steelers got everything to play for.
Yeah, look, I'm giving you an opinion. I think that it's time for a change for Tomlin and the Steelers, and I think a change is going to happen. I think it's going to be a mutual change.
I think the Rooneys revel in the fact they've had three head coaches since the Civil War. I mean, they just don't change head coaches.
Good for them, but Tomlin's the second most tenured coach in the league, right?
Yeah. I mean, Chase, they've had 3 coaches in only 50-something years. 3. Hell, the Titans had 3 in 4 seasons. Other teams have had. I mean, it's crazy.
No, and it's awesome. I knew Raymond was going to Raymond's a Steelers fan. I knew he was going to weigh in. Easy, Chase. Settle down, bro.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could see if he goes to the Panthers, gets a massive deal, the pressure's off, and you can rebuild that franchise, whatever. But the Rooneys aren't going to let him go. He's still a hell of a coach.
I'm sticking to my opinion.
Okay.
I think Mike Tomlin, I think he will coach next year, but it will not be with the Steelers.
Tuesday.
And let me tell you something. If Vrabel leaves and Tomlin's available, you do whatever you got to do. You do whatever you got to do.
Well, then wouldn't you want your GM to pick the next head coach?
You do whatever you got to do to go get Mike Tomlin.
Don't you want the GM to pick the new head coach?
You do whatever you got to do. If he fine. Let him pick the head coach. Go pick Mike Tomlin.
Real quick, we'll come back at the break. The A.J. Brown thing, it's melting down in Philadelphia.
What is he complaining about?
Let's talk about it when we come back, because there's a reason that I was told, like when they traded A.J. Brown, not about the money in 2022, but about what would have happened had he stayed.
I was told a very good reason by a very good source of why they got rid of him.
Okay, well, let's bring it up.
We'll
next.
talk about that coming
Welcome
up next.
A.J. Brown to the show.
He won't go away. Chase and Big Joe, Vandy women's basketball on 94.9 The Fan tomorrow night. Commodores will be on the road. They're 13-1. Great start to the season, taking on Mississippi State. Tip-off is at 6:30, pregame at 6:15. Coverage is also available on 94.9 The Fan app and 949thefan.com. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. He's Big Joe. I'm Chase McCabe. Talking about coaches, Vrabel, what's going to happen here. And what's funny is I don't know if it's because my phone's listening to me or if they actually sent this out, but I literally just got a notification. NFL Week 18 buzz. Upsets, coaching hot seats, MVP picks with Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. And Vrabel is mentioned in here. I haven't gotten to that spot yet, but talking about what coaches will be open, or jobs will be open. They both believe Ron Rivera is out in Washington, so that will be one that's open. Obviously, Carolina, the Raiders, and
Commanders,
Raiders, Chargers, and Panthers are already open. The Commanders will be open. Falcons probably.
Yep. It's the silly season. We talked about A.J. Brown when we get to the break there. All these editorials in the Philadelphia paper, it says Philadelphia Eagles locker room reportedly in a state of chaos due to A.J. Brown and Nick Sirianni and their big beef. Now, when A.J. Brown in 2022 won the big contract, and the rumor was that he was going to make it go all through training camp, right, in 22. That was the deal. It's like, hey, if I don't get my contract, I'm going to hold out. And then so you go into 22 with, and does he get paid? That's fine. I mean, get all the money you can. That's great and everything. But don't disrupt your teammates. Don't disrupt what they're trying to get done in camp. And I think John Robinson was like, I'm not going to put up with this. And we've talked about this before. Somebody blasted me yesterday because I blame Amy Adams for this trade. But if you're going to make a decision on the radio station, Chase, who do you go to? You go to your boss, don't you?
Yeah.
You go to the owner.
Yeah.
Say, sir, here's what we need to do. I need your opinion on this. To think that John Robinson did not go to Amy Adams Strunk and say, hey, what do you want to do here is asinine. It is.
She knew. She was in the room. She had to approve it.
She had to have.
So
stop saying she didn't know.
When people say that, it infuriates me because the owner of a team, the owner of an organization, the CEO, whatever, with the Predators, there's not a move that's made over there that Sean Henry and soon to be Bill Haslam don't know about.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
Can you imagine some big trade of the Preds and Mr. Haslam, by the way, we traded Philip Forsberg. Sorry, I thought you'd blow a gasket.
Do you remember when the Predators traded Shea Weber for PK Subban?
Yes.
Which was the biggest trade in Preds history.
June of 2016, yes.
David Poyle said in his press conference that he had to that it took a little longer, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly all the details, but they had to Tom Cigaran was on vacation or something, but he had to talk to him before he could do this move. That's how it works. Big things like that. Now, there's some trades, if you're trading, Joe Dubin for Chase McCabe, you don't need to call.
We know who's winning that trade,
Yeah,
right, Dr. Crane?
You don't need to call the owner for that one.
Right.
But if you're trading the face of the franchise and a franchise player, a guy like A.J. Brown that everybody knew was going to become the best receiver this team's ever had.
Right. God.
She's got to be involved in that.
What do you love when Robinson's out of his contract in 3 years or so, just to see him and take us through that day? I mean, just what happened? How do you – because they knew going in. I mean, he had already, said he wanted the money, the new contract extension, all that going on. But to see the meltdown now in that locker room and see him pouting on the sidelines nonstop, that's what you would have gotten here. And don't give me the whole, well, he just wants to win and fired up. When you're taking away things from your teammates with your attitude and things on the sideline during a game, I don't care who you are, that's not good, man. It's not good. But to think that, and you can tell, you go back and watch the video, Vrabel, his body language, man, when he gets up and walks off is just, you see the frustration right there. So it's just kind of, I don't know. Is it expected to see that in Philadelphia? Not real. I mean, kind of, right?
No, look, I'm not surprised by any of it. You could take this a couple of different ways. You can look at it as, well, A.J. Brown doesn't like to lose. And they haven't been playing as well. I mean, you talk about teams getting hot at the right time. There's also such a thing as getting cold at the wrong time.
You're exactly right.
And that's what's happening with the Eagles. I don't look at them as a threat right now.
No, not at all. They are melting now. Dr. Crane, you've got audio from – it's not a lot, but it's just telling. This is A.J. Brown, right?
Yes,
Sunday
sir.
after the game?
Yes, sir.
Not going to talk today.
That would be talk. There's nothing to say.
I think he'll talk this week. You don't know.
It ain't directly towards y'all, so I just want to clear that up. Okay.
It's more a song. And what's his tweet today, Chase?
Well, he probably deleted it, knowing him. He tweeted yesterday, so 17 hours ago, I will speak tomorrow.
No, they're not a threat.
I'm going to reply back.
To him?
Yeah. About what?
See if he'll come on real quick. Just real quick. He'll get 2 minutes of your time to go in right there. But, but the thing is now he's gone. It's over. It's about 2 seasons now. He's gone, and it's all that. And you just – but, would that have happened here? Would that have taken away? Can you imagine when Hopkins and A.J. Brown on the same side and Derek Run? It would have been great. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and it just the thing that infuriates me And again, I will say somebody does great when they do great. I'll say somebody does bad when they do bad. John Robinson wasn't perfect. He made some bad moves that ultimately led to his firing. But I'm not putting the A.J. Brown trade all on him. He had to have
On John?
no
Correct.
Yeah, it's not on John.
No, I totally.
He had to have the okay. Now, could it have been his idea? And he goes to Amy and go, hey, I think this is going to get worse before it gets better. I think we need to move on. Sure. But what I think is that it was, one, I don't want to pay him, and two, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Fix it.
I don't want to deal with this. Exactly
That's
right.
what I think.
So to say she had nothing to do with it, I mean, she might have said, John, what do you think? And John would have been, but the fact that she had to sign off on what he asked or what he said what we should do.
I think that so many times, too, that owners especially, like people that, are in a high-profile situation, they overthink. They it's like, oh, I have to be the owner. I have to – it's my team. I have to show that I'm the leader. And I'm not saying she does this, but I'm just saying there are decisions that they make that I think they overthink, and then therefore they make the wrong decision. Whereas, you mentioned the Rooneys. Like, okay, that's probably the best ownership in the league, right? The Rooney family?
Yeah.
I'd put them number one. I think Arthur Blank is a pretty good owner. I'd put him in the top 5. Kraft is a bonehead sometimes, but, I mean, he's been a pretty good owner.
Oh, it's so good when you got the best quarterback ever played the game.
Well,
too,
yeah, right. I mean, that's the other thing. But like Dave Tepper throwing a drink at a fan, and he's made dumb moves since he came into the league. Like,
God.
just because you're rich doesn't make you smart.
Why can't – and see, there's a bigger problem with David Tepper here because what's going to happen now? It's already happened. I don't know if you were probably too young, but it happened to Charles Barkley back in the 90s when he did something like threw a drink on somebody and got sued.
Yeah.
So what happens now is you go out and you see somebody, you're going to antagonize them. Throw a drink on me.
Sure.
And then we'll settle for $300,000 or
Right.
whatever it is, and all that stuff. Dustin Hopkinsville says, Dustin, I was with you in your entire thing. He said one thing, and I can't follow along. Dustin says, when they traded A.J. Brown, I was okay with it. Then he went and won a Super Bowl.
He didn't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he didn't win a Super Bowl, Dustin. And I was like, maybe we were wrong. Then he started chirping about the Titans organization still in Philadelphia. That was enough. He had issues. I went back to thinking we made the right move.
In life, in business, in whatever, like in what we do, I mean, you're going to deal with this very, very simple word. It's called ego. And guess what? Everybody's got one. Whether they admit it or not, everybody's got one. And so you have to decide as a leader, how much are you willing to deal with an ego? Because I think and the better a player is, the bigger the ego is going to be. A.J. Brown's got an ego. He's full of himself.
Yeah, I mean,
Name one great player.
Ronnie Lott.
Okay. That's
I'm a big history of the NFL fan and these guys, and you go. Everybody's got an ego. Everybody has an ego.
Look.
But guys like that come together for the greater good of the football team. There's a reason they win. The '85 Bears.
Sure, but like Reggie White. Reggie White is a guy that I always looked at as a fantastic man and strong in his faith, and I watched the documentary, and all that's still true. But he would even admit, towards the end of the film, he even admits, maybe I was wrong on some stuff. And he said some stuff that pissed a lot of people off. He had an ego.
I mean, everybody's got an ego.
Right,
but to what extent
here's
you
my
dominate your
point.
team?
Sure, but here's my point. You got to learn to deal with that. Like, the Titans made a mistake by trading A.J. Brown. They shouldn't have traded him. They should have signed him. He should still be here. But they didn't want to deal with the ego. They didn't want to deal with The guy that was outspoken and deleted his stuff on Twitter, which was stupid, and we used to blow him up for it. Like, just leave it up. If that's how you feel, leave it up. They didn't want to deal with it, and they didn't want to pay him.
Okay.
That's their fault. That's Amy Adams Strunk's fault because she didn't want to deal with it.
So you pay some guy even though you don't think he's worth it. So you're just, I'm going to pay you. I don't think you're worth it.
But he was worth it.
But to shut you up, I'm gonna sign this guy and all that. I totally disagree. I
Right.
totally disagree.
But he was worth it.
You don't get everything you want, man. So I want $100 million a year. You'd pay him for that? No, you don't get that money.
But I mean, like the contract that Philadelphia paid him for, that wasn't that bad.
Would he have put this Titans team in a Super Bowl? Would A.J. Brown have put this Titans team in a Super Bowl? No, he would not have. Because he would have whined and bitched and moaned in Nashville like he's doing in Philadelphia. The same thing. Can you imagine what he would do to Will Levis?
Do you think they'd be making if he was on the team?
No.
I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is here. You probably don't go get DeAndre Hopkins if you still have A.J. Brown. But do you think this team is 5-11 with him on it?
Absolutely. They got bigger play. It's not one player, man. One player.
Sure. But, I mean, I think they could have been better.
Walter Payton's the greatest running back in NFL history, besides Jim Brown. I'm going to go Walter Payton, okay? Walter Payton. Couldn't get anywhere. You know why? He had no offensive line. Then they put an offensive line around him, becomes the best running back ever in the Super Bowl era because he had people around him. A.J. Brown stays here. They're not going to the Super Bowl. So you don't always get what you want, all right?
You want a song about that?
$35 million a year? No. We'll pay you $22. Well, I'm 35. Well, good. We'll send you someplace we think you deserve it. And now it's all happening in Philadelphia, and it's ripping that football team apart. When everybody's writing about it in Philadelphia, everybody's writing about it, they're talking about it, it's ripping a football team apart.
You know what doesn't rip us apart?
Our
celebrity birthday.
That's right.
That's where I was going with that. We'll do that coming up next. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tomorrow, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45. Pick to Click, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Passionate discussion. We're passionate people.
Well, we are, and we could, that's why one of the things I'd love to bring up is the what ifs.
Yeah.
Had he stayed here, would there be a Burks? Would they have drafted another lineman? What would have gone on? What would happen? We don't know, but we know what's happening now in Philadelphia is that kind of a thing that would happen here in Nashville. It's not Titans' problem anymore.
I am going to say this real quick before we go to celebrity birthdays, because I do think you're right on something. Attitude is everything, and I can tell you right now, like, as somebody that, I've been PD for 2 years, like, I don't put up with a bad attitude. Like, if you have a bad attitude, you're not gonna be on my team. So I think you make a good point. If he keeps having a bad attitude, and everybody I've talked to when he was here with the Titans, former teammates, people that were in the building, that was not the case. But
zero. You're exactly right. Let's give credit where credit's due.
That was not the case. That maybe he would tweet something and delete it, but like in the locker room, around the team, he was a great teammate.
You're exactly right. That's a good point.
And that's why I was okay. Then keep him here. Then re-sign him. So that I'll say that. But if he's got a bad attitude in Philadelphia and he's breaking up that locker room, different story.
That's when all that happened up there, before he was still here. It was like, what? Because that was nothing that we had seen or heard of. But I think other receivers were getting that money, and great. I'm all for guys getting paid.
Sure.
I'm all for you make as much money as you want. That you
and
deserve.
this organization does not like to, especially receivers.
That's right.
I know one that's still a little upset about that.
I know, man. Isaac Bird.
Isaac Bird.
Get over it, will he?
I know. All right, with that, let's get to celebrity birthdays. Frazier.
There we go.
Come on.
Dr. Crane's got 9 jobs
Come on,
back
Dr.
there.
Crane.
Oh, there! Turn the mic on. One
Goodness
of them.
gracious, I'm speeding back here with.
Do you need a hug?
Yeah, I would mind. That'd be all right.
Did you have a good time at the Preds game last night?
It was fun. I got to see some friends I haven't seen in a while. Yeah,
Good. And friends you never met before.
Exactly. I didn't know this guy had a kid. Didn't know it either.
You're the best.
Do they
man.
like pineapples?
Oh.
Go ahead.
So celebrity birthdays.
Go ahead, Joe.
Where were we? Good Lord. Dr. Crane, you ready?
Let's do this thing.
All right. First birthday, actor Dabney Coleman. He was in War Games. Amazing, amazing actor. 9 to 5. He's the boss they hated in 9 to 5.
84.
91.
92. Dr. Crane knows his great old actors. Mel Gibson. How old is Mel Gibson today?
73.
Trick question. He's in his 80s. 84.
68.
Oh, sorry. No.
Good Lord. I can't trick question a birthday. She lives here in Nashville, I think, or in Tennessee. Danica McKellar, she was on The Wonder Years. She's in all these Hallmark movies. She's like really smart too.
In the Wonder Years.
Fred Savage.
Yeah. 58.
64.
49. Guys are close on that. Well done. Actor, used to be married to a girl here in Nashville. Actor James Marsden. He's in one of those goofy Marvel movies that y'all love. He's also in The Jury, whatever, some really popular show on streaming. James Marsden.
44.
52.
49. Don't know her.
What's the score?
It's 1-0 Dr. Crane. Don't know who this one is. The activist Greta Thunberg, who says we're all going to die. How dare you? Remember Greta Thunberg.
51.
Oh, she's like 15?
21. Yeah.
Oh. I remember she was in the news like way back in the day.
I don't know who that
she
is.
was that
The
old.
PD just
I have no idea who
stuck
that
in his office. Singer Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
He's probably like 79.
82.
79 exactly. We're tied at 1. bass player of one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin.
77.
Tough. 81.
78. Chaser's not 2-1.
I know my rock and roll.
Actress, she's beautiful, from Dallas, Victoria Principal.
75.
73.
74. That's a push. You guys got it right in the middle, man. One of the guys in Daft Punk. He's one of the guys that wears a mask or a helmet.
Don't
They
they
both
all-
do, yeah.
Yeah.
How old is his name is Thomas Bangalter. That's what it says.
What a name.
Yep.
53.
Thomas wears a helmet. This is interesting. We're gonna go a
With
little.
a name like that, I'd wear a helmet too.
Yeah. We're gonna go 41.
49. Singer and former American Idol contestant Kimberly Locke. Is she from here, right? I think so.
I don't
Kimberly
know.
Locke.
Everybody's from here or moves here. 34.
42.
46. All right, it's 2-1. So we got one more down here, and let's see here real quick. Guitar player Nash Overstreet of Hot Shell Ray. Come on, man! You get this, you tie it, Chase, you get it, you win. It's like a shootout.
42.
53.
38. Chase, you win. 2-1. Good job.
Hey,
there.
thank you.
Well done. Hey, as we leave you every morning, we tell you guys, for our men out there, that we love you. If you're struggling to talk to somebody, look, just know that you are irreplaceable. God put you on this earth to do what only you could do. Know that. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, please call 988 on your cell phone or reach out to us here. We will talk to you anytime, any place. Just know that you are loved and our world is a better place because you are here.
Amen to that. A lot of good discussion today, that is for sure. I'm fired up now to go through the rest of my day.
We'll
So
go.
thank you, Joe.
Good.
I appreciate that.
You get what you earn and deserve.
We have more time. That's why I'm kind of
Oh,
stalling.
do we? Okay. Yeah, let the conversation continue
That's what-
with the.
that's what that means.
The A team comes in next, and give them your thoughts. I mean, that's the thing we're going to talk about because the AJ Brown thing is still it's never going to go away from us in Nashville.
And I can't wait to hear Derek's thoughts on it because, I mean, look, Derek is passionate about that position. Actually, Derek's off today, so we won't get Derek's thoughts. But, passionate about that position and guys getting paid. But, I mean, I know that there are times where it's just like, just shut your mouth.
But he's not
just
going to do that.
Let it play out. No, he's not because that's who he is. So, whatever.
There's a lot, can you imagine somebody going after Ditka or Vince Lombardi or one of those? No.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace coming up next. We're back at it tomorrow at 9, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.